Welcome back to. What if I told you that a coin that looks like an ordinary 1-cent piece could actually become one of the most interesting coins in your collection? Imagine opening an old coin jar, checking through a handful of pennies, and suddenly finding a 1969 Lincoln penny with a small D mint mark. At first, it may look like nothing more than an old copper-colored coin worth 1 cent. But before you throw it into a spending pile, stop and take a closer look. Because when it comes to Lincoln cents, the smallest details can sometimes make a very big difference. Today on Hardest Penny, we are taking a close look at the 1969 D Lincoln penny, a coin that has an important place in American coin history and can become much more interesting when you know exactly what to look for. 1969 D Lincoln penny. The 1969 D Lincoln penny was produced at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small D mint mark on the obverse of the coin below the date. The coin carries the classic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, a design that had already been familiar to Americans for more than half a century. Turn the coin over, and you will see the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. This memorial design had been introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the famous wheat ear reverse that had been used on Lincoln cents since 1909. So, when you hold a 1969 D penny, you are holding a coin from an interesting period in the history of the Lincoln cent. But here is the important question. Is every 1969 D penny valuable? The answer is no. However, that does not mean your 1969 D penny should be ignored. The real excitement starts when you begin examining the coin for condition, varieties, errors, and unusual characteristics. The first thing you should check is the mint mark. Look carefully below the date and find the small letter D. That letter tells you the coin was struck at the Denver Mint. You may also encounter 1969 Lincoln cent from other mints, including Philadelphia and San Francisco, but the Denver issue is specifically identified by that D. Now, take a good look at the date itself. The numbers should have a normal appearance for the coin. If you see unusual doubling, strange shapes, or what appears to be an extra part of a number, do not immediately assume you have discovered a rare coin. Many apparent doubling effects are caused by mechanical or strike-related issues rather than a valuable double die variety. This is why identifying the mint mark correctly is so important. A collector who sees the year 1969 and hears about the famous double die might become excited immediately. But you have to look at the entire coin, not just the date. If your coin clearly carries a D, you should evaluate it as a 1969 D Lincoln penny. Now let's talk about condition, because this can have a major impact on collector interest. Imagine two 1969 D Lincoln pennies. Both came from the Denver Mint. Both are the same year. Both have the same basic design. But one has spent decades circulating through stores, pockets, vending machines, and cash registers. Its surface is covered with scratches, small dents, and signs of wear. The other coin has been carefully stored since the day it was produced. Lincoln's hair shows strong detail. The lettering is sharp. The fields are relatively clean, and the coin has very few distracting marks. This is why collectors pay close attention to uncirculated and high-grade examples. If you find a 1969 D penny that looks unusually fresh, do not clean it. This is one of the most important rules for anyone searching old coins. Never polish a potentially collectible coin just to make it shiny. Cleaning can leave scratches and unnatural surfaces that may permanently reduce the coin's desirability. Original surfaces are usually much more important to collectors than artificial brightness. Instead, handle the coin carefully by its edges and examine it under good lighting. Look at Lincoln's portrait. Check the date. Inspect the mint mark. Study the lettering. Then turn the coin over and examine the Lincoln Memorial. Look at the columns, steps, lettering, and the overall strike. You're looking for anything that seems unusual compared with a normal 1969 D cent. Mint errors can also make a coin more interesting. During the striking process, mistakes can occasionally occur. A coin may be struck off-center, clipped, struck with unusual die damage, or display another genuine mint-made error. The more dramatic and clearly identifiable an error is, the more attention it can receive from collectors. But there is a major warning here. Not every damaged penny is an error. A coin that has been hit by another object, squeezed in a machine, scratched, bent, chemically altered, or damaged after leaving the mint is not necessarily a valuable mint error. This is where careful examination matters. A genuine mint error should have characteristics consistent with something that happened during the manufacturing process. If you think your 1969 D penny has an unusual error, compare it with normal examples and consider getting an expert opinion before assuming it is rare. Another factor collectors consider is color. Copper Lincoln cents can develop different appearances depending on how they have been stored and exposed to the environment. You may see reddish, brown, or combinations of red and brown coloration. On an uncirculated copper cent, original red color can sometimes be particularly desirable. But color alone does not guarantee a high value. The overall grade, surfaces, strike, rarity, and collector demand all matter. And that brings us to one of the biggest mistakes people make when searching for valuable pennies. They see an online listing showing a 1969 penny with a huge asking price and assume their own coin must be worth the same amount. That is not how coin values work. An asking price is not necessarily the same thing as the price a coin actually sells for. Condition could be dramatically different, varieties may be different, and certified examples can have characteristics that an ordinary circulated coin does not have. So if you discover a 1969 D penny, do not automatically believe every dramatic value claim you see online. Instead, identify the coin first, then determine its condition. Then check whether it has a recognized variety or genuine mint error. And finally, look at reliable market information or consult a professional when necessary. The exciting part is that you do not need expensive equipment to begin searching. A simple magnifying glass, good lighting, and patience can take you a long way. You can start by searching your old jars of coins, inherited collections, bank rolls, or boxes of pennies that have been sitting untouched for years. And if you find a 1969 D Lincoln penny, take a few minutes to inspect it properly. Maybe it is a normal circulated coin. Maybe it is an attractive, uncirculated example. Maybe it has an unusual strike. Or maybe it simply becomes a fascinating piece of history in your collection. Remember, the value of coin hunting is not always about finding a coin worth thousands of dollars. Sometimes the excitement comes from discovering something that other people ignored. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example. Millions of people may have seen one and never thought twice about it. But a serious collector will stop, look closely, and ask questions. Where was it made? How well was it struck? What condition is it in? Does it have unusual characteristics? Is the mint mark correct? Are the surfaces original? Does the coin match known varieties or errors? Those questions turn an ordinary penny into a treasure hunt. And there's something else that makes this coin special. Every 1969 D Lincoln penny is a small piece of American history. It was made more than half a century ago, during a period when the United States was experiencing enormous cultural, technological, and economic changes. That little copper-colored coin could have traveled across the country. It may have been carried by a child, used to buy something from a store, dropped on a street, placed inside a cash register, and eventually forgotten in someone's collection. Now, decades later, it could be sitting in your hands. So the next time you see a 1969 D Lincoln penny, don't be too quick to spend it. Check the date. Check the D mint mark. Check the condition. Look carefully for genuine varieties and mint errors. And most importantly, learn before you make a judgment. Because in the world of coin collecting, knowledge can be more valuable than the coin itself. A penny may look ordinary on the outside, but sometimes its story is anything but ordinary. This is Hardest Penny, and if you enjoy discovering the hidden stories behind old coins, keep searching, keep learning, and never underestimate the smallest coins in your collection. Because you never know when the next penny you pick up could be the one that makes you stop and look twice. Absolutely. Here is a single part, around 1,200-word English YouTube script for your channel Hardest Penny, focused entirely on the 1971 Lincoln penny, with a strong hook and no sections. I've kept the coin title in bold as requested. Imagine finding an ordinary-looking 1971 Lincoln penny in an old jar, a forgotten drawer, or even in your pocket, and discovering that this tiny 1-cent coin could be worth far more than its original face value. Most people would look at a 1971 penny and think, just 1 cent. But collectors know that sometimes the smallest details can make the biggest difference. A tiny mint mark, an unusual doubling, a rare condition, or a striking error can completely change the story of a coin. And today, on Hardest Penny, we're taking a close look at one coin that millions of people have probably held in their hands without ever realizing what could make it interesting. 1971 Lincoln Penny. The 1971 Lincoln Penny is one of those coins that looks incredibly common at first glance. It was struck during an important period in American coinage, when the United States Mint was producing enormous numbers of Lincoln cents for everyday commerce. The coin features the familiar portrait of President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, while the reverse carries the Lincoln Memorial design that had been used on the cent since 1959. But here is where things become interesting. When you find a 1971 penny, you should never judge it only by its age. A coin does not automatically become valuable simply because it is several decades old. Instead, collectors look at its mint mark, condition, strike quality, errors, varieties, and overall rarity. The 1971 Lincoln cent was produced at multiple United States mint facilities. You may encounter a 1971 penny without a mint mark, a 1971 D penny carrying a small d for the Denver Mint, and 1971 S cent from the San Francisco Mint. San Francisco also produced proof examples intended primarily for collectors. So, the first thing you should do when examining your 1971 penny is flip it over and inspect the date and mint mark carefully. On Lincoln cents from this era, the mint mark can provide an important clue about where the coin was produced. The next thing you need to understand is condition. Condition can be everything when it comes to collectible coins. Imagine two 1971 Lincoln pennies sitting side by side. Both were made in the same year, both have the same basic design, and both may have the same mint mark. But one coin could have spent 50 years circulating through stores, vending machines, pockets, and cash registers. Its surfaces may be covered with scratches, contact marks, discoloration, and wear. The other could have been protected almost immediately after leaving the mint. That second coin may attract much more attention from collectors. This is why you should never clean an old penny just because it looks dirty. Cleaning can leave scratches, unnatural surfaces, or other damage that may actually reduce the coin's desirability. A collector would generally rather see an original, naturally aged coin than a coin that has been aggressively polished. Now let's talk about something that can make a 1971 Lincoln penny especially exciting: varieties and double dyes. A double dye occurs during the dye-making process when a design element is impressed more than once in a slightly different position. On a genuine double dye coin, the doubling is part of the dye itself. This is different from simple machine doubling, which can create a flat or shelf-like appearance and is often much less valuable. For anyone searching through 1971 Lincoln cents, the important lesson is simple. Do not assume that every unusual-looking letter or number is automatically a valuable double dye. You need to examine the coin carefully. Look closely at the date, the lettering, and especially the major design elements. Strong, clearly defined separation can be more significant than a vague distortion. Magnification and good lighting can make a huge difference when searching for varieties. And remember, a rare variety must actually be identified and authenticated before you start imagining a huge payday. This is where many coin hunters make a mistake. They see a little extra metal around a letter and immediately believe they have discovered a coin worth thousands of dollars. The internet is full of dramatic claims about pennies supposedly worth enormous amounts of money. But serious collectors know that value depends on evidence, rarity, condition, demand, and authentication. The 1971 Lincoln penny is also interesting because of its huge production numbers. Since many cents were made for circulation, ordinary examples are generally not rare simply because they are from 1971. If you find a worn 1971 penny in everyday change, it is usually not a jackpot coin. But that does not mean you should ignore it. The real excitement comes from finding something unusual. For example, mint errors can sometimes create coins with characteristics that were never supposed to appear. Off-center strikes, clipped planchets, wrong planchets, die cracks, and other genuine mint errors can attract collectors. The severity and authenticity of the error are extremely important. A minor imperfection may have little effect on value, while a dramatic and clearly visible mint error can be much more desirable. Another important category is proof coins. Proof coins were manufactured using special processes to create sharper details and highly reflective surfaces. If you come across a 1971 South Lincoln Center with an unmistakable proof appearance, it may deserve a closer examination. Proof coins were generally not intended for normal circulation, so finding one in excellent condition can be exciting. However, even among proof coins, condition matters, and not every proof is automatically rare or extremely valuable. Now, let's imagine you discover a 1971 Lincoln penny that looks nearly perfect. The surfaces are bright. Lincoln's portrait has strong detail. The lettering is sharp. The coin has very few visible marks. You check the date and confirm it is 1971. Then you look for the mint mark. You notice something unusual about the design. This is the moment when you should slow down. Do not clean it. Do not scratch it. Do not try to make the details more visible with chemicals. Instead, take clear photographs, compare the coin with reliable references, and if you believe you have found a significant variety or error, consider having it examined by an experienced numismatist or professional grading service. Authentication becomes especially important when the potential value starts becoming significant. There's another reason the 1971 Lincoln penny remains fascinating. These coins are pieces of American history. When this penny entered circulation, the United States was going through a period of major social, economic, and political change. The coin itself may have passed through countless hands. Someone may have received it as change at a grocery store. Another person may have dropped it on a sidewalk. It might have sat inside a cash register for years before eventually ending up in a collection. And now, decades later, you might be the person holding it. That is what makes coin hunting so addictive. You're not simply searching for money. You're searching for history, mistakes, varieties, and stories hidden in plain sight. So, if you have a jar full of old pennies at home, take another look at the 1971 coins. Separate the different mint marks. Examine the condition. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the date and lettering. Look for unusual doubling, major mint errors, and anything that does not match a normal example. But most importantly, keep your expectations realistic. The majority of 1971 Lincoln pennies will not make you rich. Some may be worth only their face value or a modest amount, depending on condition and collector demand. But a particularly desirable variety, error, or exceptionally preserved example can be much more interesting. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes the hunt exciting. You never know what will be sitting at the bottom of an old coin jar. You could be looking at a completely ordinary penny, or you could be looking at a coin with a feature that collectors have been searching for. So the next time someone tells you that a penny is only worth 1 cent, remember the 1971 Lincoln penny. Its value is not written only on the coin. Sometimes, the real value is hidden in the details. And that is why you should never spend an old penny before you inspect it. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Check the condition. Check for varieties. Check for genuine errors. And if something looks unusual, investigate it before you dismiss it. This is hardest penny, where the smallest coins can sometimes tell the biggest stories. So keep searching, keep learning, and most importantly, keep looking at those pennies because the next unusual coin could already be sitting in your collection.